John, I knew that when we spoke beforehand that this was going to be a real joy, a real treat, and you definitely delivered. And so I think there's going to be a lot of things that I want to try to cover up on. This is going to be hard without some form of pun and innuendos here. So there's a lot of things I want to cover off on. First, the things that you asked me to look for was your vocal variety, and also I think just the content and subject matter of what you were doing and how it was going to be received. Content-wise, and I think this is what you've always done really, really well, is you bring a lot of content. You bring a lot of creativity. Creativity, humor is definitely your strong point, and you come at it with shock. And I think that all of us are always on edge. We don't know what you're going to do next. From the very beginning, at the intro or the title of your speech, I think everyone thought, oh boy, like, here we go. And so you've got everyone's full attention. You've got complete engagement, incredibly creative, down to even just pulling out the toilet tissue roll with the written text on. I thought that was awesome. So every single little thing that you've got that you pulled into your speech, there was a lot of preparation there, and especially when you get into the alliteration of the way you describe the terms. Your language is very rich. You're very good with your terminology and language, and it's not overwhelming, but it's really rich. So when I look at your speeches, I think, man, that is a lot of great content, which is surprising because when you look at it from afar, you say this was a poop story. And it's sort of like, well, but at the same time, there was an underlying message, a ton of creativity, and I think that the underlying message was clear in terms of what you were asking or teaching the audience, which was the core of it was our poop position, title of the speech. So now in terms of the critique, there's a lot of dangerous things in the approaches that I think you've taken, which is, and the huge one is you got to know your audience. I think this is a fairly safe audience. I don't think anyone here is too prudish. I think that in general it's been well received, but there's concerns with language, with offensiveness, with too much shock. It depends on your audience, and I think that here it can play well, and definitely you've entertained us in the past, and everyone's really loved your speeches, and they've gone off really well. So I think that you continue to kind of push the envelope, make people feel uncomfortable, and that's kind of the angle you go. But it's also just something to watch out for. And if you were ever doing speeches outside of this room, you'd have to dial it back perhaps a bit. So it's just something to pay attention to. And the other thing I'd look for is also how dynamic your speech is and your terminology. You're still very reserved. You're very you, and that's okay. But in future speeches, you might try to be someone else a little bit, and just to play with that, and even to take a different angle in terms of content. So something serious, and even with the humor ones, find a way to inject some form of heart. So just a couple of suggestions, but otherwise, again, you always delivered. You did an awesome job, really creative, really high on humor, and man, I just can't imagine how much work must have gone into that. So great job.